In our first week, I'm also including a review of some Idaho laws on teacher rights. Now, if you're working in another state, I'd like you to look at your state statutes and see if you have similar laws providing rights protections to teachers. I'd like to hear from you if your state has more or fewer than what we see in Idaho. I'd like to begin a very quick review of teacher rights by saying you might remember that I talked about the right I have as a university professor to speak on matters relating to the courses I teach. Well, you have the same professional right. You have earned the professional right of becoming an expert in the subjects you teach and becoming an expert in classroom management, in student learning, in the school leadership, even in school law upon completion of your certification. So you enjoy this right of being an expert, being a professional who can make comment, who can speak on issues related to our profession. I don't want you to forget that. That's an important right. It's a status right. Back in the 1750s, English common law included a provision that teachers became the parent. And Sir William Blackstone, the famous British jurist, in his commentaries on the laws of England, described this in loco parentis concept very well. And it simply states that a teacher acts in the place of a parent when given responsibilities for students. Now, that Old English common law was brought forward and was quoted by the United States Supreme Court in a number of cases. Some of them we will study, one of them being a student speech case, where the court made it very clear that a teacher, an educator, could manage the mission of a school by stopping a student from using profanity, by stopping a student from soliciting drugs. The Supreme Court uses Blackstone's language in loco parentis a number of times, and we'll see the importance of that being a right of a teacher to act in the stead of a parent and to do what a smart, savvy, reasonable parent would do given the circumstances of a particular setting. Now, the Idaho statutes that I have listed here have been loosely grouped into, first of all, the protection of a teacher by law from abuse, the abusive treatment by a parent or anyone else, particularly in the presence of other children. You might be surprised to find that statute. There's also statutes about giving the teacher the right to manage his or her classroom as the teacher sees fit. There's the right of a teacher to be free from threats and from harassment. There's another section that you'll look at, and you'll see that you have the right as a professional to be told why your performance is not up to standard. You may have a right to a hearing. You may have a right to substantial due process procedures. And your right to due process increases with the kind of contract that you have been issued in Idaho. And as you move up into contract category 3 and into renewable contract status, you will see that you have rights to probation and you have rights to a determination as to whether or not the district has given you a full measure of just and reasonable cause. You will also see that teachers in Idaho have some immunity rights. If you report child abuse, for example, in a reasonable manner with good faith, you are immune from any retaliation. The same applies to questions of negligence in Idaho tort law that we will look at in another week. In matters of negligence, the Idaho tort law gives you immunity if you are making decisions within the scope of your duty, and if you are making common sense, sound decisions within the scope of your duty. You can be given immunity from negligence. Well, as you look at these Idaho selections on teacher rights, I hope you come to a conclusion that you do have a number of enumerated rights, and that Idaho law is something that you can go to when it comes to questions about what should I do when someone at a parent-teacher conference, for example, begins to use abusive language with me? Do I have to take that? Well, the Idaho statute says you absolutely do not have to take that, and the person who is treating you in that manner is subject to criminal charges. Take the time to look at these closely as you go through these rights, keeping in mind that we are looking at kinds of law. This is legislative law that also has been escalated to, in some cases, case law. And this is part of an ethical discussion as well, that teachers are professionals, and as professionals, they're entitled to ethical treatment.